the Elden Ring community, strength users are widely accepted to be the most skilled, highbrow, and chromosomally blessed players. Obviously, I'm joking, but while you can argue whether they still qualify as sentient life, you can't argue with these results. You see, I am one of these creatures, one of God's failed prototypes never meant to see the light of day. And so is Dr. Bibblebron PhD, and while he may look like a subhuman caveman, that's because he is. But he's also a leading researcher in the metaphysical concept of strength. So much so that he does not believe in the idea of investing points in any other stat. Because why think when you can just crush things? He yearns to spread his message to the lands between, and I feel like it would be a good thing to do. So I'm gonna help him. Will our combined strength and knowledge be enough to beat the Elden Ring before the Elden Ring beats me into an unavoidable self-inflicted eternal loss of consciousness? There's only one way to find out. Intro things happen, but who cares? We've now arrived in the lands between, more specifically Limgrave, which is where 9 out of 10 of my future victims say the real game begins. Before my training can begin, I need a spotter, somebody to assist in my researching gains. But what I found instead was Melina, who offered to be my maiden and assist me on my journey to establish a new order, and I said yes to the first, but I had to politely decline the latter. As you see, the good doctor is a practitioner of the art of semen retention. This is to optimize gains. Let this be a reminder to you all to not share your testosterone essence with the lusty succubi of this world. So now it's time for my favorite part of every Elden Ring run, the setup. Because as long as I'm setting up, I don't actually have to play the game. This is also the point I must address the gay elephant in the room. While the doctor is at least B tier in strength, he is absolutely terrible in every other way. He was born with paper bones and glass skin, and the mental acuity of a medieval peasant. And don't even mention cardio in his presence, you've been warned. And while I try and make jokes, they're only copes, as this is a bad indicator of the trajectory of my mental health. But I have a plan. My plan comes in 3 parts. Part 1 is to increase my HP in any way possible, such as with items like the Crimson Amber Medallion, which is honestly kind of dog-ass, but a 6% increase to HP is more than a 0% increase, so I'll take it. Part 2 is to maximize my damage by overleveling my weapon. And part 3, I need to get significantly better at the game, but that part's optional. That's enough strategizing for now though. I eventually started heading up to Stormvale, but it was then that I was jumped by this threadbare delinquent. I don't know why he's attacking me. Maybe he wishes to take advantage of the doctor's dummy thick glutes. Or maybe he's just a homeless man and we've wandered into his territory. But he shows me and Dr. Bibblebobbles over here the what for and puts us in the dirt. But this will only make the doctor stronger, as repetitive failure is simply part of the science of gains. Anyways, after I went to the round table hold and upgraded my weapon, Margit didn't stand a chance. He only killed me like 6 times. Heading up to Stormvale, I met this guy, who definitely skips leg day, and arm day, and well, he probably doesn't go to the gym. Anyways, he let me know that if I wanted to get inside, I'd have to use the back entrance. Heading around back, I Goomba stomped the guards with my ass before stimulating this man's prostate and climbing my way out of there. I ignored pretty much everything else in the castle because Dr. Binglebon has an appointment and he isn't going to be more than 30 minutes late. Fighting this geriatric should have been easy, but he too is a doctor, well versed in the field of grafting, and having grafted much stronger limbs onto his decrepit body, he now wants to harvest ours. When the fight wasn't going his way, he brought out the big guns. Not the dragon, but this deceptively big hitbox. After that slight inconvenience, the doctor administered some end-of-life care and put an end to his wretched stealing of gains. It was after this fight I realized just how bad things were going in the health department. But I was in too deep to quit at this point, so like many others I turned to intravenous drug use. Dr. Buichi Ban IV whipped out his little doctor notepad thing and prescribed himself the maximum legal quantity of steroids, TRT, EPO, HGH, you know, the usual stuff, and then all we had to do was pick it up. That part was easy. All I had to do was kill a few people. The result was this twisted homunculus abomination, with the girthy 25 in vigor, all through items that would slowly sap my will to live. But I wasn't planning on living long anyways. Now for Liurnia. My objective was simple. Get into Raya Lucaria, beat up the woman, and get out so I can get out of this land of limp-ankled losers as soon as possible. Snatching the academy key from under the sleeping dragon, I made my way into the academy. The nerds didn't even stand a chance, because there's no mandatory PE class at this school. But then I got to this dog. And I mean, it's just a dog, and I'm stronger than a dog. But what I didn't account for was this dog being better at video games than me. Everything came crashing down. I died like the low-tier gamer that I am, even with my health boosted. And worst, the rune arc I was using, that was my only one. In denial that my plan was both bad and a failure, because it failed to take into account the fact that I suck, I put my nose to the grindstone and eventually took down the Red Wolf. But soon I reached the headmistress's office, and it was infested with a bunch of subhuman bricks sliding around on the ground like Roombas trying to bite my ankles. This distracted me so much that I failed to see this flying tombstone before it acquainted itself with my forehead. Once I beat Renala fair and square, she activated domain expansion and sent us to the water world. This was hell. Not for me, but for the doctor. As I stated before, he was not built for cardio, leaving his stamina drained more times than I would like to admit, making for some rather unfortunate circumstances. Eventually, he caught his breath and finished the fight. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the last time that the doctor's lack of cardio is an issue in this run. Anyways, with Renala back to being a paperweight and 2 grit runes in my possession, I'm now on the fast track to the high life up in the Altus Plateau. Now in Altus, I saw the sights, met the people, stole their seeds, but that's not all that interesting. So for saving your time, why don't you like the video? If you don't, then the doctor won't be able to continue to afford his steroids. Do it for him. Now, back to the pain. To get inside Leyndell, there are 2 options. Fight the Draconic Tree Sentinel, or feel the embrace of a woman. So fighting the Draconic Tree Sentinel is pretty easy, unless you're me and have a head injury that makes this specific boss hard for you. Hard, kind of like the rod he shoved up my ass. But as they say, eventually the rod too must fall. And with him defeated, I was now inside Leyndell. After admiring the view, I dropped down and run across the rooftops, doing thousands of dollars in property damage. Tuckered up from all that cardio, Dr. Boffle Bongo sits down and that one thirsty girl reappears, but is dejected that I still refuse to share my strength-filled essence with her, and leaves. Before continuing, I resume my plan to empower myself by first heading down into the sewers, because everyone knows that's where you find the real treasures. After that, I return to Raya Lucaria to get abducted and taken to Volcano Manor, where I acquired some more upgrade materials and the Crimson Amber Medallion +1. Which increases health by 7%. That's a 1% increase from the regular medallion to +1. This discovery made my toes curl, but like backwards. But again, a 1% increase is more than 0%, so I'll take what I can get. Returning the Stormveil, I grabbed the Claw Talisman, which I had forgotten because the steroids had given me early onset dementia, and this cute little hood, which increases vigor by 1. So now I get to look stupid for the rest of this run, but this is the price I pay for optimal performance. Additionally, I purchased the Bandit Guard from Gostock because I had some excess equip load, so no more gawking at the doctor's perfectly chiseled muscles. Now the doctor is ready. So back to Leyndell. Climbing the tree roots, I fought the ghosts of Dickhead's past, and did pretty well, only dying once because, well, I got greedy. But hopefully this is a good sign that the real Godfrey won't be the most awful experience ever. Now for the King of Leyndell. And I was looking forward to fighting a king, but instead of finding a king, it was just that homeless guy from before looking for round 2. This time though, he has a knife, and was apparently on crystal meth because he's a lot faster than I remember. He even tried shitting on me when his health got low and made me do a backflip, but I got up and finished the job. After finding that the Erdtree gym was closed for business, Melina returned and gave me a present, in an obvious attempt to get me to share my increasingly virile essence with her. But my answer is still no. Making my way through Canada, I eventually found the Fire Giant, and he beat my ass for a bit, because, I mean, look at those muscles. But then I remembered that while he may be a monstrous mountain of a man, he still is Canadian. So I just reminded him that the Blue Jays lost the World Series and he fell to his knees. And I finished him off with the savage blow that Canada hasn't lifted the Stanley Cup in 32 years. Overkill, but probably deserved. Sitting at the forge of the Giants, the semen-drinking succubus appeared again to and when I refused, she knocked me out, before lighting herself on fire, banishing herself back to the void where all succubi belong. I then woke up in my favorite One Piece arc, Strong World, and then moved along. After running through some of the worst this game has to offer, I got to the next boss. It's time for my biggest challenge yet, the Godskin Duo. We got the king of the cut and the king of the bulk. Fighting them made me reconsider all of my life choices that led me to end up here. To start, I didn't want to use sleep pots because reasons, so I tried everything I could to avoid the inevitable. I tried St. Trina's sword for a different source of sleep, and it sucked. I then went and killed Radon, condemning him to be trapped in the Shadow Realm with that incubus Mikola, so that I could grab the Ruin's greatsword. But it didn't work because I'm not very smart, SMRT, and I really don't have the FP for that. I even pulled out my secret weapon, the Giant Crusher, but it wasn't enough on its own to beat the dynamic dickheads, so I had to do it. I spent multiple hours collecting all the materials for sleep pots. I hate myself, but with them in hand, I was able to beat the uncircumcised duo. Continuing through Fair Missoula, all I found was more suffering, first at the hands of the Draconic Tree Sentinel, and then at Malekith's. I repeatedly got my ship prolapsed while trying to use the Giant Crusher, so instead of throwing myself out a window, I instead did some rethinking. After some consideration, I decided to double down on the jump attack strategy. So I went and grabbed the raptor's black feathers, just don't ask how many times I died in that cave. Surprisingly enough, my plan ended up working out pretty well, and I ended up no-hitting this fight. Maybe, just maybe, the worst is past. With Death Unleashed, the Erdtree burns, like for real this time, and Lindell got turned into Iraq. Before continuing to fight Gideon, I dropped down into the sewers and picked up the Crimson Amber Medallion +2, to increase my max health just a little bit more. For Gideon, I spared no expense and prepared my best, because if I fucked up on the first attempt, then I was going to become very well acquainted with the electrical cord hanging in my garage. Thankfully, I was able to take him out in just 3 hits, so clean that I dropped my full sack on his face multiple times. Having stolen Gideon's retirement fund, I used it for some final upgrades before approaching the Erdtree. At this point, I thought I was through the worst of it, and I don't know why. I always tell myself that, and I'm always wrong. I had come face to face with the only man outside of anime with muscles to rival mine, and he was ready to check the doctor's prostate to see if he was natty or not. This terrified me because he wasn't all too worried about how he got access to it. Then, much like a phoenix, the doctor's cardio problems rose from the asses, as he would always seem to be out of breath and left vulnerable for Godfrey to fucking demolish. So I started experimenting with all sorts of wacky ideas, like using a sword and a shield. But all this proved to me that health was now merely a binary concept for the doctor. Eventually, I was hit with the damning realization that my only option was to look back at the plan. I had to get good. The grind was real, and there were many heartbreaks, but I eventually achieved good and entered a flow state. I knew every attack that was coming, and Godfrey was helpless to stop me. Once in phase 2, I knew that if Godfrey even looked at me the wrong way, then I would be vaporized. But it was too late for Godfrey. I had ascended. The crown was now mine. With no obstacles remaining, I entered the Erdtree gym, only to find this cross-dressing twink. He tried to give me a lobotomy with his hammer, but I showed him that my hammer was bigger. He simply wasn't built for this kind of pounding. 3 good hits and he was on his knees, and just ask Glenn what happens next. The Elden Amoeba was a bit harder, but that was just because he liked running away and testing the doctor's cardio. But that was only postponing the inevitable. He was going to go in the doctor's protein shaker. With one final blow, the final boss fell, and I beat Elden Ring by only leveling strength. Now I need a drink.